So, could you just explain how you got involved in making this film?
Well, I had an email from video volunteers. Video volunteers were doing this project anyway, training these. I mean, they're still in existence. Video volunteers. They've got a website, and they go around different parts of the world, particularly the developing world, training people to make films and express, about what they want to they're community video makers, basically. And I found out about this project, and I thought it'd make a really good film. And so that's why I tried to get funding to make it.
Where did you get the funding from?
Well, I got some development funding from Worldview, which is a fund if you have an interest from a broadcaster. And at that time, Storyville, someone called Greg Sanderson was working at BBC Storyville, and he gave me a letter of interest, and that gave me the development money to go over there and film it.
Can you talk about how you collaborated with the women in the film?
Well, the women were filmmakers themselves, obviously, and I asked them if they would be interested in filming their daily lives. So, I mean, a lot of the footage was shot by them. Everything that's in their houses, they chose to shoot themselves. And I just said, can you film whatever you want to film to show us in the West what your life is like? And what was really interesting is that they all used their cameras in very different ways. The four women that were in the film. I mean, Indira very much used the camera to try and get her husband on the spot, to put him on the spot, to sort of say that he wasn't supporting what she was doing because she felt that he wasn't. And so that's what she did with her camera.
I just wanted to ask you if there were any problems with you being in their homes filming them, and particularly if there are any problems from the husbands.
Well, when I was there, the husbands kept miles away, and I never met really. I mean, I did meet the husbands, but the footage of even Vinoda's husband, who's a carpenter, I mean, that was taken by. So we involved all the women in the project, because there were 12 women in the project. We had them sort of working in teams together. So there were women filming. The four key characters in the film were being filmed by their friends. So, for example, when Vinoda was asking her husband if she could go out to a meeting, and right at the beginning of the film he says, go but come back quickly, that was being filmed by one of Vinoda's friends. And if I'd been there, they wouldn't have been there, really. I mean, they kept well away, really. What was difficult about making the film, very much so, was editing, because there was my footage, which I took films of them making the video diaries, and I filmed to contextualise them filming and making their child marriage film. Then I had bits of footage from the child marriage film itself, and then I had the footage that each of the four women had taken in their homes. So it was a very, very difficult. The edit took for years, actually.
Really? But it's very well structured, isn't it? So it did come together eventually.
That's thanks to Johnny, who edited it in the end. Because I was so close to the footage. I mean, it was a nightmare, actually. So it was really good to, in the end, have someone who came in and was a professional editor. And he kept saying it's not on message, because there was so much footage. And I think everyone who makes films knows that you always want to include bits that you care about because it took a long time to get it or something or other. And the editor is so valuable because they say, no, it's not on message, we've got to get rid of that bit. So,
were there any opportunities for the women to get involved in the editing process, or was that just not practical?
No, it wasn't, unfortunately. I mean, they weren't trained as editors. They were involved with their child marriage film, not actually physically editing, but they managed, video volunteers put that together over there in India. So they said, we want that bit and that bit. But no, unfortunately not. But they very much liked it when they saw it.
And for you, you've made most of your films haven't been participatory.
Yeah.
So how did it feel different to make a participatory film as a filmmaker? How was it different?
Well, I think, other people in the audience who make films, all films are participatory in a way because you're collaborating in telling someone's story. You may be the one filming it, but they are still giving you access to their lives and sharing their story. So, but the difference, I think, it was quite exciting because what happened was they had, you know, I gave them some tapes and they had their cameras at home anyway, and we sort of, they all live 5 hours away from each other. That's not very clear in the film either, which is amazing how they all come together. They all get on buses for 5 hours to meet in the middle for these meetings and to screen their films. But it was really exciting, sort of getting their footage and then seeing what they'd shot and everything. So that was great, actually. It was fun. I think it was probably more fun, actually, in some ways than making films where you're the one filming it. And
yeah, great.
So it was fun. It was good fun,
I
yeah.
do have some more questions, but I'm going to open it up to the audience now to see what you want to ask Sue. So Barbara's going to come round and pass the mic around. So are there any questions?
A very practical question, just to give you some context. We're doing internet radio with excluded groups, and we found some very interesting parallels in terms of the way the media and the technology sort of helps to raise confidence and leads to all other things. For example, I noticed very powerfully that one of the women said it led to new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not a small thing. But my question is very practical. How much training did they have and what equipment did they use? So if we wanted to replicate it, sort of, how would we go about doing it? Or
They were trained for a month. And I mean, as I say, I didn't do this. It's all credit to video volunteers. And they were using mini DV cameras.
Is that any
But, I mean,
camera?
it's quite a while ago.
Any particular camera, or is there one particular camera that's suitable for this sort of purpose?
No, I mean, just something...
Easy.
Yes.
They look very basic, very
They
cheap
are.
cameras.
Yes, they are. I mean, you know, obviously it's probably hard to get hold of those cameras now, but they were just Panasonic mini DV cameras.
I would just say cameras that are easy for your, you know, for your young people to use, really, and instant. Even their phones, you know.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, yes, if people, I mean, people have phones with cameras. I think people also, actually, what I noticed is that I think everyone's most of the women had televisions in their houses, even though they live in very remote villages, some of them, they have televisions, and everyone is very visually literate, and I don't know how much training they needed, but they were, you know, they took pictures like a professional, really. I mean, they were...
Sorry, would you say a month, was that a month solid or just a month?
I think it was a month solid. Yes, I mean, the trainers came over from, well, one is resident in India, but someone came from America, and yes, it was a month solid.
We've got a question over there.
Yes, can you please speak? First of all, thank you very much for the film.
Oh, and could you say who you are first?
Reza Muradi, my name is.
Okay.
And you are
I work at this university, work as a lecturer. How about the legal issues in making such films? Did you face any kind of legal issues, challenges, are there consent form, location forms, etc.?
Just sorry, can you just say that again? I heard you say consent forms.
The legal issues.
Legal issues, okay. Well, yes, I mean, we got consent forms signed and explained what the project, I mean, worked very closely with the translator. And the person that, I mean, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that you don't know are there, like the woman, Mira Shenoy, who was organising the project on the ground. Not my filming, but the project that I was making the film about. And I paid the women too, because I decided to pay the women the same as they were being paid by the project. That just felt, because they were being paid by the project when they filmed. So it felt right that I did the same thing. It was like an extension in a way. Yeah.
But did you give the women like consent form so that they get signed? Is that what you did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I'm David Tossell, I teach here.
All right.
I'm just wondering whether you were worried about repercussions on the women who took part once the filming had been completed.
Yes, obviously and Al Jazeera, who broadcast it in the end, they came in on it and paid for the edit. We showed it to them before it went out, and they were happy with it. And Latta, who was speaking, was very publicly speaking about her situation. So, I was worried when we started filming with Indira, and she started to cry at the beginning when she was doing her video diary, because I was there for the video diaries. As you saw, I was filming them with the cameras, so you could see them switching them on and off. She started crying, and I thought, oh no, why? But she was crying because she was so pleased to have the chance to speak her mind and to have someone to hear what she wanted to say. But yes, obviously we did take all those things into consideration. You have to, don't you? Yeah. Sadly, the project's not going on anymore because the funding stopped, I think. But they're involved in a community newspaper, and that's how the women were picked originally by the project, because they were very active in their villages. It's a great shame, actually.
And just to follow on a bit from what you said already about sort of, I don't know, degrees of participation. I suppose at the end when it sort of says filmed, directed, produced by you, this sort of balance between who's doing what and what's participatory, was that something that you discussed with the video volunteers, with the women themselves? Was there a shared understanding of what's participatory? Not really, because I was there originally very clearly to develop a broadcast documentary. So that was the parameters of it, really. So unfortunately, they weren't going to be involved in the editing, and that was something that they knew right at the beginning. But yeah, so it's not like a sort of some collaborative films. It's sort of partially collaborative, really. There are different degrees, as you say. But it took me years to to get it into some sort of shape, actually, because there was so much footage. Even though I was only there for a few weeks, there was a lot of, and the women each woman only filmed for 2 days. It took a long time to get a structure and to. Even now, I watching it myself, having not watched it for a while. Is it clear that the women are making a film about child marriage and that's a separate project? Is it? Oh, it is. Oh, good. Because to me, I sort of think, gosh, is it? So it is very confusing as to where I am and where, yeah. Well, it was just me and my Gillian, who I worked with on lots of films before. The two of us were there. And we were there specifically to make a film to start with about the fact that they were making a film about child marriage. And they'd chosen that subject because they were child brides themselves. And they felt very strongly about it and really wanted people to stop that practice. So I was there to make a documentary about how the filming and the whole process of making the film had changed their lives and the fact they were doing that. But I was also thinking at the same time that I had to try and come back to Britain and get a broadcaster involved, interested in commissioning a film. And I thought, probably actually in hindsight quite rightly, that wasn't enough for them to commission a film, that there'd been a lot of films about projects like that. So I thought, well, as these women are filmmakers and have cameras, I will ask them if they would be interested in also filming their everyday lives and showing us whatever they want to show us. And they did it for 2 days each, the 4 of them, and there were 12 in the group, and the 4 that we featured, everyone worked on it. Everyone was paid and everyone worked because they worked in teams of 3 or whatever. So some of them just were behind the cameras, but Latta, Indira and Vinoda and Parvati wanted to actually be in the film. And in fact, actually Latta worked, in fact, most of the camera work was done by her father, in fact, actually, Latta's. So they did different. They just did it differently, and they showed very different things. But a lot of their children. I mean, Parvati's obviously very understandably proud of her children, and her son doing his homework. But I thought I'd never have. No one would be able to get that unless you were filming your own children doing that. Their homework.
Sue,
Yeah.
I think because we have to move on soon, we'll just
Yes.
have two very quick questions, and then we'll have to round up with Sue. So, what's your question?
Hello, Martin Wright. I'm from Game Lab as part of this university. First of all, congratulations on a very subtle, multi-layered film. It's really good. And a very simple question is, you talk about a vast amount of footage. What was the overall shooting ratio?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. Well, I think however long the mini DV tapes are, actually Indira shot a lot. I think I had about 4 or 5 from her. But I shot a lot too. I mean, I don't know, I can't remember. But I think the hardest thing, actually, it probably wasn't the amount. It was the fact that it was coming from 3 different cameras. And it was how to actually cut together and make a shape with footage from different sources. That was the hardest thing,
I see
really.
you finally cut it at VET, did you?
Sorry?
You edited it finally at VET.
Well, actually, I'm making a longer version. I am an academic as well myself, and actually I'm doing a practice-based PhD and making a 45-minute version.
Oh, right.
So I can get a whole lot more in. This is what went out on Al Jazeera. So yes, no, I'm cutting a longer version, actually.
Was there one more quick question?
Thanks. Just a quick question. I mean, you said it took years to get it edited, which I can relate to, actually, absolutely.
Yes.
But I was wondering whether it was possible to get the film back for the women to see. Did they actually see the finished
yes.
product? They did.
Yes.
And what did they
yes.
think of it?
Oh, they really liked it, and they were really, they were really pleased that I'd remembered them. I mean, they don't think they'd realised that I'd spent a lot of the time in between, sort of trying to get funding and trying to get it all together. But yeah, no, they apparently really liked it. I'd like to go back over there myself to, and sort of see how they are now, because it's a long time since I was there. It's sort of 2006, I think it was.